I'd like to start off by getting to know the audience just a little bit. Show of hands. How many of you are highly paid individuals? Yeah. I've asked that question before in conferences, and it never gets much of a response. But I suspect that you were hired by your companies or by your organizations to bring. Ask yourself this: were you brought in to bring in innovation, creativity, and new ideas and improvements in business processes? Or, look at a heckler. Or were you brought in to keep the lights on? All right, now my suspicion is that those of you who might have been hired to keep the lights on and nothing but keep the lights on, you might not be in this audience. I'd like to assume that the people in this audience are here because you have a mission, whether it's a personal mission, a mission for your company, whatever, to bring new ideas and innovation and improvement to your companies. And I'm not sure there's ever been a better time than today from an information technology standpoint to bring new ideas in terms of how you deal with customers during the sales process, during a pre-sales process or post-sales process, re-engaging with customers that may have gone away over the years, to maximize productivity and improve product quality, to improve the way we deal with our suppliers, or to manage a dramatically changing workforce that we have out there. There's never been a better opportunity for your companies, and there's never been a better opportunity for all of you in this audience who can have an impact on this. So it's just a great opportunity. So my mission today, I believe, is to give you some things to think about. Am I going to give you answers? I don't think so. I think you have to come to those answers yourself. But my mission is to give you some things to think about. All right? The 3 O's. I just thought those were 3 nice words that go well together, so I thought, oh, that makes sense. Observations, obstacles, and opportunities. So basically, anything I can think of is what this comes down to. Digital transformation versus continuous improvement. I had a really great group session this morning, very enthusiastic bunch of people talking about digital transformation. What is it and what is it not, and all that type of thing. I think if you talk with a lot of different people about digital transformation, you get a lot of different definitions of what it is and what it isn't. But I think that one thing about it is that digital transformation sounds big. And a lot of people have trouble getting out of the starting blocks because it does sound so big. And when it's so big, it sounds expensive. It sounds like it could be disrupting my company, and it sounds risky. And therefore, a lot of people stand back and they don't do a lot. All right? So one of the things that I think might make a lot of sense is let's talk about continuous improvement. By the way, I come from a manufacturing background. Before I joined SAP, I was with a couple different manufacturing companies from an operations standpoint, not IT, not financials, but from an operations standpoint. So a lot of the things I talk about are from that perspective. But we always talked about continuous improvement. What can we do to improve these processes? We have something here that's not as good as it could be. It might be broken, or just maybe not as good as it could be. And maybe it's manual and we can add some automation, or maybe it's already automated, but it's just not as good as it could be. All right? But let's start knocking off some of those smaller projects. Maybe digital transformation is that thing we have in the back of our minds that says long-term, this is where we want to get, but we need to start somewhere. We need to start knocking some of these things off. And maybe we start with some low-hanging fruit to go out there and attack some of these problems. So sometimes it's a hard pill to swallow. We don't have to eat the elephant. Sometimes we can just go after continuous improvement, and so everyone will say, oh no, we don't want to do digital transformation. Continuous improvement? Oh yeah, sure, we can do that. Interactive enterprise systems. A lot of people know SAP as an ERP company, Enterprise Resource Planning, which I believe was a phrase coined by, I believe, Gartner in the mid-1990s. All right, so think about the computer technology that was available in the 1990s compared to what we have today. So here you have systems that were called ERP, developed in 1995, and we have systems that are called ERP, I'm going to rather say enterprise systems, in 2019. How could they possibly be the same? Well, they're not. All right, the capabilities of the enterprise systems today are far more greater than they ever have been before, and a dramatic difference from what they were in 1995. For example, with the advent of in-memory processing, we have the ability to pull in massive amounts of data real time. All right, now why is that important? Systems a long time ago, and 20 years ago, didn't have that capability. They would get bogged down. So what does this mean for you from an enterprise standpoint? This means you can have a system that is actually a digital twin of your actual enterprise. What is actually going on? So if it's going on in your enterprise, I can see it on my computer system. If it's on my computer system, it's going on within my enterprise. This is a dramatic difference because I see a lot of customers out there, a lot of companies with enterprise systems that are implemented as a system of record. It was put in place to manage our financial records, our financial requirements. So the financial people are all very happy with it. And as long as our transactions all day long get in there by the end of the day, they're happy. The problem with that is it doesn't do a whole lot of good for everyone else, for the procurement people, for the sales people, for the production people, the maintenance people, the quality people, the sales people. Did I already mention that? I don't remember. For the HR people, they don't have a system all day long. If you go out to almost any manufacturing facility, what you see there is, well, he's not at his desk right now because he's out on the plant floor. Well, she's not there right now. She can't talk. She's on the phone. She's emailing people. What are they doing? They're trying to get information because their system doesn't have it. It's not up to date. It might have it later, but it doesn't have it right now. And all day long, unexpected things are happening, and the only option they have is to manually take care of these things. That is a dramatic difference from what we can do today because we can actually take in this data and not only have the power to take in all this data, we can also throw back some information. I was just telling somebody just a little bit ago over at my table that I've talked to some of our analytics people, and they'll do demonstrations where they talk about, well, I analyzed this and I can analyze this, and two hours later I'm still analyzing things. And I'd say, I used to work in a manufacturing plant. I didn't sit around looking at charts and graphs all day long. Okay, I had work to do. All right, well, it's the same type of thing, except now with the power of the in-memory processing, the system can be set up to look for particular things that we know are threats. We know our threats to customer delivery. We know our threats to our cost structure, threats to profitability. When the system finds those things, reveal those to the user community, because the faster I know about a problem, the faster I can address it and do something about it and keep it from becoming a bigger problem. All right, so interactive enterprise systems, moving from a system of record to a system of interaction, a system that's actually interacting with me. I'm on the edge of talking about gamification of manufacturing. Having that app that's telling me, this is what I should be doing, this is what's happening, what should I do? Almost like it's a game based upon a company's standard operating procedures that are built into that phone. I'm not there yet, but I think you see where I'm going. Data explosion, data sprawl, data explosion. When I joined SAP 15 years ago, we tended to talk about, here's your ERP system, here's your underlying database, and over here we might have a data warehouse and some analytics to go along with that, all right? But that was a very simple and probably oversimplified view of the world, and of course SAP was in the center of it. Data explosion. Research company Aberdeen recently did a survey of 400 very large companies around the world to find out how many data sources were they trying to manage today. The average came out to 35 data sources that each of these companies, on average, were trying to manage in order to tap into that data to use it to run their companies, all right? So whether that's, I can come up with multiple ERP systems, CRM systems, plant floor systems, streaming data from the plant floor, streaming data from smart products. There's a lot of data sources that need to be tapped into. But regardless of how many that is, whatever you were doing 5 or 10 years ago to manage data is more than likely not adequate for managing today and where we're all going. You have to come up with some new methods for managing data. One of the things that I find to be the case out there is the importance of a data strategy. And this sounds like like I'm trying to spin up some type of consulting gig here, but that's not the point. Data strategy that goes along with the operational strategy that supports the business strategy. And I would say that probably about 10% of the customers I talk to or the companies I talk to actually have a data strategy that matches up with the business strategy of the company. In other words, here are all the things our people need to do for us to meet our business objectives, and we don't have a strategy for how to give them the information they need to do their jobs. All right? So And sprawl, what sprawl represents is, I heard somebody compare this to their garage at home. They said, at home in my garage, I have a lot of stuff I put in that garage. And I know where everything is. I clean it out, I put everything in its place. But then I start getting more stuff. And I take up a hobby, and that takes up a corner of the garage. And I put my summer stuff. I live in Grand Rapids, Michigan. We put our summer stuff in there so it doesn't get damaged by the ice. Next thing you know, I've got so much stuff in there, I can't find anything anymore. And the same thing is happening out there in data environments, is they have so much data available to them that they're trying to use, they end up with a mess because they don't have the right tools. They're using tools they used 10 years ago to manage that data, and it's inadequate, it's not working. The changing workforce and IT organization. You know what, I've talked about this in the privacy of my own home because I just like listening to myself talk. And every time I do this, I'm amazed at how wrapped up I get about this. There's so many things to talk about this. One of the things I looked up recently was how many jobs will be lost to automation over the course of the next 10 years. The numbers are all over the place, okay? It's millions and millions of jobs will be lost due to automation. But the thing that I found most interesting was it was also talking about the jobs created due to automation. And the real question is, how will the people who lost their jobs to automation be retrained to take the jobs created by automation? That's a scary thought there, all right? Because in my head, when I think of those two groups, there's a big chasm. There's a big difference between those two groups. So I'm very concerned about that. But a major change here is we're all talking about data integrity and digital systems and that type of thing. Obviously, digital systems don't work at all if you don't have data integrity. All right, and everybody wants to move to more digitization or digitalization. But a lot of the workforce out there says, I like my manual processes. This is the way I've always done it. I'm not going to necessarily, there might even be an automated process here that matches what I do, but I don't use it. Why? Because it doesn't match with reality. It doesn't match the way I do my work, and I can't trust the data anyway. We need a real cultural change, and those of you in this room right now have to be part of that big cultural change to say, no, you are not the process, you are the person managing that process. Take a look at that process, make it right. If it's not right, let's make it right, and you need to monitor it and make sure it's working right. That's the mentality we have to get to, and we're all responsible for data accuracy. The user community isn't, the IT community isn't, everybody is responsible for the accuracy and the functionality of those processes and that data. Two major changes I see out there from an IT perspective. One is that focus on data. Once again, I think back to my life before I jumped into the software industry. We had a lot of people that just said, hey, I don't trust the data that's in my system. And when we go to IT, they say, hey, look, if they're going to put garbage in the system, that's their fault. That's their problem. I provide them with a system that's running fine. If they put bad data in, that's their problem. Well, no, it's not just their problem. Data is an asset for the enterprise. People are recognizing that, and the IT organizations say we need to make sure that that data, that asset, is taken care of and done properly. And there are tools out there that they can use themselves for data accuracy, as well as provide to the user community to help get that data more accurate, more timely, more complete. All the things that go into integrity of data. So that's one thing, is a focus on data accuracy. The other thing is process, taking responsibility for processes. I've said before, not today I haven't said it, but in the past I've said, if a company has 10 different ways of doing things, that means that everyone's not doing it well. There are probably a couple who are doing it well, there are a couple that aren't doing it so well. Companies today are saying, we want one operating standard procedure for how we do a particular thing. The IT organization is the perfect organization for managing that type of thing, to say, this is how we are going to conduct our business. And not only are we going to define it, because we've been doing that for years, we're also going to monitor adherence to that, and we're going to enforce compliance to those procedures. I compare it to a manufacturing setting. If I'm a guy who's responsible for making widgets, there's a quality guideline that says this is how you're going to make it. I don't leave it up to the guy on the assembly line to say, I'm getting kind of bored of putting these 6 screws in here all day long. I'm going to start putting 4 screws in this one for here, and I'm trying to speed things up. I can save money by putting 2 screws in there. You see the problem. We can't have just people going on variations just because they think, I think we'll do it differently today. Companies are saying we need to have a standard operating procedure for how we do things. And this could also launch into an entire presentation on things like once we have a standard process and we know what that process is, now it starts lending itself to robotic process automation and things like that. That's a different conversation. But focusing on data and focusing on processes. So anyway, so these are some of the things, as I mentioned, my mission is to give you some things to think about. I'm at risk here now because I don't think these types of speaking opportunities are for a sales presentation, all right? But I do think it's important that we talk about some concepts to help address some of these problems, okay? And that's really where I'm trying to come from here, okay? What does this represent? This represents user interface from an enterprise system. One thing you notice about this, it isn't the old, here's a menu. There's still a menu embedded here, but what this is doing, as I mentioned before, it's going through your data, it's sifting through your data based upon what you guys say is most important, finding situations and revealing that to the users. So they don't have to go out and search for issues and sit there and going, gosh, I wonder if this material is going to be here in time to support my production line. Instead, why not have the system monitor for that, determine when is that material going to be here, when's it going to be needed, and then raise a flag for that person saying, this is something you probably ought to be checking into. Because otherwise, how am I going to find out about it? How do people find out things of today? This is how they find out about things today. They're sitting at their desk, or they're walking around and somebody says, hey, do you know if we're going to get any more of that screw in today? Because I'm almost out. What do you mean you're almost out? Yeah, I'm almost out and we're going to be shutting down production pretty soon if you can't find any more. All right, that's a problem. How else do I find out? I come in from lunch and there's a Post-it note on my PC. Hey, you better check this out. Once again, how do I check it out? I don't have a computer to go to because it's not up to date and I can't trust it. I got to jump out to the plant floor and start counting stuff, trying to find that box that I know came in, but where is it? I'm not sure we can ever fix that problem. But nonetheless, my point here being enterprise systems that are interacting with the users. Digital boardroom, SAP Digital Boardroom. This is actually a product. I'm not throwing it up here to be a product. I'm using it as an example of something else. First of all, a key drivers between what we're trying to accomplish is visibility and focus. We have three key drivers, the third one being agility. But visibility and focus. What we're trying to provide to executives here is visibility of everything that's important to running their company. And also, you'll see how there are some things up here that are red and green in different colors. We're trying to provide focus. Not only do you have the visibility, but here is where you need to be focusing your attention. Two key drivers. But here's why I'm showing this particular thing. The thing in the middle here, financial information, financial content. Probably in our case coming from an SAP system or multiple SAP systems because a lot of people use SAP as a financial system, okay? But if you look over there to the left-hand side, the far side, operations. This could be coming from SAP, could be coming from non-SAP ERP systems, could be coming from manufacturing execution systems, warehouse management systems, could be coming from a lot of different sources. Over here on the right-hand side, we have customer data. Once again, could be coming from SAP or non-SAP systems, CRM, multiple CRM. Could be data that we bought from another company that we're using for market analysis. It might be sentiment analysis from social media that we're gathering. The point that I'm making here is it's no small task to bring all of these data sources together in one place where it can be used real time. We're not talking about snapshots that were taken in the morning and now we somehow merge all these things or mash them together for an analytic. Now we're talking about all day long, the C-level people in your company can see exactly what's going on and they can use this not only to accumulate everything into one place, but then to drill down into all those same things. So if they see something of interest that they'd like to know more about, they can drill into it to find out. And I will tell you from a performance management standpoint, when we implement things like this, we also like to have some similar types of things for the people below them who give them their data just a little bit sooner than what the upper level gets, so they can start preparing their answers for when the upper level starts asking questions. Not a bad thing. But anyway, my point being that the data world that we're in today is far more complex than ever before, and therefore we had to address things like this. So here's a concept. If you look at data sources or silos down at the bottom of this, different functional silos, and we see different types of data sources, and all those lines in the middle represent all of this spider web or this mess of trying to tie things together. We would like to try this. Well, you're going to need data from here and here, okay? And now, next project, we'd like to do this. All right, you're going to need it from there, there, and there. Okay, and now we'd like to do something else for a different group. Okay, you need that one, and that one. And you end up with this type of a mess. The concept that we're pursuing today, and I've disguised product names and things like that, centralized data management. What we're talking about here, and this came up in one of my meetings earlier today, the idea of establishing the pipelines. Not redundant data, not replication of data, but pipelines into those various data sources so that I can start operating on that data from one central place. If I know that I'd like to create an application, an analytical application, let's say, that combines various things from different silos, I have one place to go, that the pipelines are already established, and I can start using that. Was there a cost up front in establishing that? Absolutely, the first time, but once you have it in place, I can reuse those pipes over and over. I can also use this, and once again, we're using real-time data here. We're using data virtualization to make this possible. But not only can I do analytics, I can also do business processes, okay? One I recently talked about with a trucking company is that truck's going down the road, the telematics are going back to the OEM to let them know how the performance of that truck is. But what can I do with that? I can do all kinds of things with that analytical data, of that performance data from that vehicle. But what if I want to bounce it against my ERP system to get master data? You know, who does this truck belong to? And what's the history of that truck? What were the components and the serial numbers and the lot numbers of the things that went into that truck? Because that'll help me diagnose the problem. I can also go to my CRM system and get data there about the customer or the fleet that this belongs to. I can also go to a database that says, when you have this type of a symptom, it typically means this kind of a problem. So now I have an idea of what that problem could be. And I can also look at data coming from service providers who are not part of my company, so they're external companies. I can find out if this truck is in Utah right now and is having a water pump issue, who are the service repair organizations in that immediate area with that water pump who can actually do that service right now. And once I have all that, I can send it to the truck driver that says, hey, it looks like you're having a little bit of an issue. You might want to pull over here soon. Would you like to make an appointment at this service center? As you can see here, that opens up entirely new business process opportunities for differentiating your company. And this is something that was just our advanced capability for this. I guess this is a commercial to some degree. It was just introduced last year. This is on the rapid development course for SAP. The reason I bring it up is because I think this is a real problem that all of us need to face, and we're trying to come up with solutions to these problems. I'm sure this isn't the only solution to this problem, but once again, my mission here is to give you some things to think about. The last thing I'm going to mention here from a capability standpoint, I talked a little bit about IT organizations being more focused on process management, process compliance, process enforcement. The term process mining, if you're not familiar with process mining, look up process mining. Because these are the types of tools out there that not only help you establish what that business process is, they also hook into all your various applications to find out how are people actually doing their jobs. And come back with reports that says 75% of the time, the process happens just the way you think it's happening. 5% of the time it goes outside of this, and 5% it goes outside of this, and 5% it goes a different direction. And if we do it like in a procurement operation, for example, you'll end up with something that says that $1 billion of spend went through the normal process, but 0.3 billion, 300 million, went through a separate process that isn't even a standard process, somehow bypassed the standard process. And that's a point where somebody can go out there, the user community and the IT community can go out there and say, why aren't you following the process? What do we have to do to make you follow the process, or how do we have to change that process? Or do we need an exception, a variation, a deviation from the process? So another very hot topic out there. All right, so I need to finish this off, although I would love to talk a lot further about this. So a few recommendations. Determine where you want to be, where you are, and a path of continuous improvement to get there. The digital transformation, that target is where you want to be. Going down the path of continuous improvement is probably a good way of getting there. Find out where you are. Maybe that seems like an obvious thing, but it's not so obvious. I find, quite honestly, as I'm out there talking, I recently was talking with an IT organization about a project they had, and they said, well, this is how it works today. This is why we're trying to fix it, because this is how it works today, and we get a lot of errors. We went out and talked with the user community, and they go, no, it doesn't work like that at all. So they didn't know where they were to begin with, let alone where they were going. So that's a key point there. Move from a system of record to system of interaction. I hope I covered this pretty well. Just don't have that system that's gathering data. I've heard customers say, we don't feel like we're getting the value out of our ERP system that we thought we would get. Well, all you're doing is feeding data into it, and then a whole lot of people who are running around all day long trying to get information. Yeah, you're not getting the value. But the systems today have that ability. You didn't have to implement the new system just the way you did 20 years ago. And lastly, define a data strategy, environment, and governance program that supports your enterprise business strategy. This is keeping our own data management people, this is keeping them very busy. Like I said, about 10% of the companies we talk to actually have a data strategy that's solid out there, that they can base their architecture on and everything else. The other 90% are saying, no, we need to look at what is our business strategy and the operation strategy. What is our operational strategy that goes along? What do all of our people need to be doing for a living on a daily basis? And now we have to make sure that we have the tools in place and the data of high integrity that will support those business functions. This is taking a lot of time these days as people are saying, we can all go digital, we can all digitalize a lot of processes here. We can't do it without high integrity data, and we need a new set of tools in order to do that, some new ideas. Once again, as I opened up, I think, as I mentioned before, there's so many opportunities out there for companies today to dramatically change the way they're doing their business. I think most of you in this room know that. Not only do the companies have that opportunity, you as individuals have that opportunity. Not just the opportunity, but you also have kind of a responsibility to make those types of things happen. And I hope over the course of the last 20 or 25 minutes, I've given you a few things to think about. Thanks.